round 3 of a Vintage League. We're playing Jeskai Ascendancy. Our opponent's Dancing Jesus. We've got some fast mana, a Brainstorm, Mental Misstep. Dancing Jesus has been known to play a pretty wide range of decks. Survival of the Fittest, Dredge. This is not the strongest hand, but I don't think it's a bad hand either. I'm pretty okay with keeping this, but I'm not thrilled. We definitely want to play at least the Pearl, so that we can hold up Swords to Plowshares. But I think we'll hold the Ruby back. Playing out your Moxen in Vintage, there's a lot going on to that. Because you want to play your Moxen out early if you play against Mishra's Workshop deck, which will then play cards like Thorn and Sphere, which will make your Moxen cost more. But you don't exactly want to play your Moxen out against an Ancient Grudge deck, because then your Moxen are exposed. So you have to pick and choose which situations you're playing your Moxen out and for what reason you play them. Our opponent looks to be on something more like a blue-red Xerox deck, or it's more of like a controlling deck, but we don't know that yet for sure. We didn't hit another land drop, so we can't do the classic Brainstorm fetch at the moment. And I don't really want to get locked under the Brainstorm where we won't be able to draw lands, so I'm going to give it at least one more turn. We're not going to be under pressure for a little while, so I don't think it's right for us to Brainstorm lock ourselves right now. This is likely to be a Young Pyromancer, which we of course will let resolve and then Swords. This deck is also a Xerox deck. I would agree, King. We just have like a little bit more of a combo thing going on here. So I can either Mental Misstep this or just wait until next turn and Swords it. And I think I would rather hold my Mental Misstep. Mental Misstep ends up being very important in the Xerox mirrors. The Xerox mirrors tend to revolve very heavily around who can resolve an Ancestral Recall. So your missteps are kind of important. And we have another Sword, so I think it's fine to let this one resolve and go to my turn. We're really just looking for an island off the top so that we can Brainstorm. Fate Stitcher, not what we're looking for. I still don't want to Brainstorm lock myself. I obviously want to get rid of, I don't really need a Ruby, and I don't want a Fate Stitcher, so I'd like to be able to shuffle them away with Brainstorm Fetchland. But yeah, Coop. Nassif hooked us up, which is really nice of him, and it's much appreciated. So we got to get rid of the Young Pyromancer, which is good. We're going to pass it back one more turn. 2 months for Coop. Thank you, you powerful wizard. Much appreciated. Dak Faden. That's a problem. We really don't want Dak Faden to resolve, so we're going to Brainstorm and hope it resolves. We're going to look for a Force of Will. I'm going to get a Volcanic Island, I believe. A little unfortunate because they could be playing Wastelands. I don't know. It could come back and bite us pretty hard if we take a Volcanic Island here. But I think it's important that we have a Volcanic Island. So Dak Faden actually seeing a bunch of play now in Legacy, but very strong in Vintage as it can -2 and gain control of a Moxen. So we found our Ascendancy. So we could actually Ascendancy next turn. Which will help kind of break this Brainstorm lock we're about to put ourselves in. We're going to put back Dig Through Time, Fate Stitcher. We can't play Ascendancy if they steal our Pearl, though. That's worth noting. This is going to be a very challenging game for us to win. We don't even have spells to really cast. This library, if this library was an island, I'd feel much better. We're going to have to hope they cast 1-mana spells into a Resolved Ascendancy, if they even let us cast an Ascendancy. Not good for us. Really bad for us, actually. Unfortunately, the 1 land drop has really hindered us this game. And they're going to gain control of the Pearl. They make the correct play, and we're going to be really hard-pressed to win this game. Would you want to be an actor in Orange is the New Black? I don't know very much about Orange is the New Black, to be perfectly honest with you. So I don't know if I could answer that question. So we're going to play our library, but it's going to be very hard for us to get on library. library is a land, or restricted land, where you can tap and draw a card if you have 7 cards in hand. So we know what our next card is. It's going to be Dig Through Time, so we're not going to cast that. So if we hold back our Ruby, then the turn after Dig Through Time, we can get what's called On Library. So we'll start activating our library every turn. It's like a one-sided Howling Mine. Pretty reasonable card. Yeah. I mean, I do know that part about it, but I don't know very much about the inside of the show. So I don't know if I could be an actor in a women's prison. I don't know how many roles I would fill in that show. So we're going to draw that Dig Through Time and then just pass the turn back to them. They're going to start gaining a pretty heavy advantage with Dak Faden. Dak Faden's +1 is Faithless Looting. As I'm sure you guys know, Faithless Looting is quite the, oh my, powerful magic card. Tim. Treasure Cruise, draw 3. Alright, this game is pretty much over, but we'll play it out until it's kind of more of a definitive. They can actually wait a turn now, and they can also get on library, which would be a problem. No, so Bazaar is card disadvantage, so unless you have a way to make your graveyard, make the cards that you put in your graveyard do something, then you're actually at a disadvantage by activating library. But if you're like dredging or putting squee or something in your yard, then you can mitigate the downside of Bazaar. We have just Fate Stitcher, which would be correct. That would be I'm just going to concede to this, because we're going to lose this game anyway. I'd rather him not see that we're on Ascendancy combo. Fate Stitcher's just not enough. You're already putting cards in your yard already. You don't really need to accelerate it with Bazaar, and as you could just see, having another colorless mana would be a hindrance, for sure. So, against a deck that's similar to ours, we want to bring in Pyroblast, counter target blue spell, Blusterstorm, counter target instant sorcery. I don't hate the idea of having some gut shots in the deck to kill Pyromancer, but I'm not 100% sure if we're going to do that. Typically don't really want Mystical Tutor, as it doesn't interact very well against opposing digs. I would rather have gut shots than Swords of the Plowshares. But we still might not play them, as we have to look and see if there are any other cards we'd like to board out. You can actually board out an island in these matchups, though we still don't know if our opponent's on Wasteland or not. And then we'll just board in one gut shot and see how it does against the other young Pyromancer deck. So this hand has Force of Will, has a bunch of fetch lands for a cruise and a Preordain. It's not the strongest hand, but I'm pretty sure it's a keep. In formats like Legacy, you do board out Force a lot in these more fair, grindy matchups, but I think the power level of vintage spells makes it so I don't really think that's worthwhile. Oh, that's an aggressive mental misstep. I really dislike this mental misstep from our opponent. It's going to end up working out really well for them because we don't really have follow-ups, but I think it's too aggressive. I think that's like fine, Yeoman, but I think that in these kind of matchups, you just need to mitigate dead draws to an extremely large extent. I think it's perfectly reasonable to bring out an island here. This is not the kind of grindy matchup where you're trying to like make a land drop every turn. You do want, it's not like the same as like a standard control matchup. Here, what we're gonna do is we're going to fetch both times so that we can use our Preordain and keep a card on top if we want to. We're also going to be getting very close to cruising, which is nice. So you play differently with when there's a... God, that's annoying. So this is why they did an aggressive misstep, so that they could then do a Snapcaster misstep. Library, you just play differently when you draw it. So if you have a library in your opening hand, you just manipulate the way you play the game so that you always have 7 cards. And once you're on library, you don't really get off library. It's kind of a little bit difficult to explain without showing you. But library, when you have it in your opening hand, is when you draw cards with it. If you draw it in the middle of the game, it's typically just a colorless land. Forcing here is just too greedy. And I'm okay with them misstepping. I think I need to hold my misstep in hand so that I have a blue card to pitch the Force of Will when I want to eventually cruise next turn. So we're gonna let this happen, unfortunately. I'm just a really big competitive gamer. I like to. I was really big into League of Legends for a very long time. I played semi-competitively, played League semi-competitively. Before that, I did a lot of physical sports like rugby and that stuff. Nowadays, it's mostly Magic. Sometimes I play League, but I went around to the Grand Prix circuit last year, and this year I've been kind of grinding Vintage online. But that's kind of my hobbies, really, is just gaming. It's going to be an Ancestral on my upkeep. It's going to be a Mystical Tutor on my upkeep. That's fine. Mystical Tutor is a slow tutor. It's going to put the Ancestral on the top of their library. Here, ooh, Lotus is not a bad draw. It's going to help us with the mana for casting Cruise. I'm not going to leave any cards in the yard. And I'm a computer engineer, so I work at Electric Boat. So I make electric plant models for nuclear submarines, the Navy. So I'm glad we held this misstep, as it's going to allow us to force their force, and we're going to get to resolve our treasure cruise and draw 3 cards. Those are a really strong series of draws. We're going to get to play Pyromancer, and then get to Gush, return these 2 islands to the hand, draw 2 cards, get a Pyromancer token. These are interesting. So we didn't really draw any more cantrips. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave open our red so that we can try to Pyroblast their Ancestral Recall that's on the top of their library. We're also going to play Pearl to try to play around Flusterstorm, but that's not going to work, unfortunately, because it'll be the 3rd spell cast. But we know they're drawing Ancestral, so we're going to try to Pyroblast it. Typically, you don't want target player draws 3 cards to resolve. So they have a misstep again? Wow. Insane. Alright. They get to draw 3. Our Gush wasn't bad. It's just they had a misstep. Another misstep, apparently. That's why I was telling you that I think misstep's really important in the matchup. And that's why I didn't really like their aggressive misstep, even with the Snapcaster Mage. Though the Snapcaster Mage does make it better. They went bottom with their Preordain, which is a really good sign for us. We don't have very much going on, but basically one good draw spell will change that. Look at a peek. They have another cruise, so we need to try to find a way to stop them from cruising. Cruise is pseudo ancestral. Oh, we're 1 mana short of hardcast Force of Will. That's quite frustrating. So they're gonna get to cruise next turn no matter what. Really, we have no way to stop this, so I'm just gonna try to get the beat down on. Try to put pressure on them. If we had another blue spell, we could force this treasure cruise and be in very good shape, but. So, we made a mistake on which Shop's Hate we chose today, Portable Head. Chewer is really relevant because how low mana it costs, but we really want to play Shattering Spree over Chewer. This is what I decided. After I submitted the deck, I forgot, and we should have put in Shattering Spree. Hurkyl's Recall feels a different role. Hurkyl's Recall is really good when you can combo off after Hurkyl's Recall. Granted, this deck is somewhat of a combo deck. I think you find that Hurkyl's Recall is really only good Shop's Hate if you're playing Paradoxical Outcome. So yeah, Geeky. A couple people are watching because Nassif dropped off some cool people. So we've been got some new viewers. Fun. Biggie Smalls. Thank you for the Twitch Prime. Is that Twitch Prime sub? Twitch Prime sub. You're a powerful wizard, and I hope you enjoy the content. It's not bad thinking though. What you're saying, Portable Head, is not bad thinking. And Ingot Chewer, I don't think is the correct one. I think Shattering Spree is a better choice. We don't want to attack with our Pyromancer into his Pyromancer, but we will attack with all these Elemental tokens. And then we're going to hold up Hardcast Force of Will. They have 4 cards in hand after cruising, so it's still going to be tough to win this game. but we're going to try our best. All right, we got there. That's really lucky. It sounds like they drew a bunch of lands, which is a reason I do like to cut an island here. So yeah, I think these chewers should be Shattering Sprees. I think you definitely pointed out something correct, but I do find that Hurkyl's Recall you really only want in the PO style of decks where you're comboing out. So the reason I had Chewer in initially, Karate, is because these style of decks are incredibly weak to sphere effects, and Chewer is one of the best anti-sphere effects in terms of removing spheres. But it is worse than Shattering Spree here, especially with Jeskai Ascendancy in the deck. But we do have Shattering Sprees in the list that I would use moving forward. Yeah, there was a reason I chose Chewer, but it ended up being that it wasn't exactly the correct reason. I mean, it was the correct reason, but it wasn't the correct card for that reason. So, I agree that it's a little out there. This hand has a Misstep, a Pyroblast, 2 Missteps. This is a keep. It does have some weaknesses, but I don't hate where it's going. With 2 Missteps, with 2 Missteps and them on a mulligan, I probably would aggressively misstep things like Preordain here, but they don't have any, it seems. I don't want to expose my Volcanic to something like a Wasteland, so I am going to just hide behind a Flooded Strand. With another Flooded Strand in hand and a Pearl, it's not even that bad if I crack for a Volcanic with this one, so. So they hit 3 mana, but they didn't have a Dak Fade in. That or they're waiting to hold up with Pyroblast backup. We hit a Force of Will, though. That's a good draw. I will play this man land now, as we have some time, and it's not really hurting us to play a tap land right now. We don't have any action, but we have a lot of permission, and we have a lot more cards in hand than our opponent, so not really a bad place to be. Bait Stitcher, not the greatest draw, but it does pitch to Force of Will. We won't be standing up this Fairy Conclave anytime soon. I can tell you that much, though. Though we do have Volt Protection, but it's not really what we want to fight over. We don't really want to use all our mana and not be able to Pyroblast. So our opponent has out of mana sources. We will be out of mana sources shortly as well. The upside to playing this Pearl out is we can better play around Flusterstorm, or we could hardcast Force of Will. I think that's actually fine. I don't believe we'll be doing any hardcasting of Force of Will, especially when we have Pyroblast backup, but this is a pretty easy mental misstep here. Brainstorm, restricted in Vintage, not restricted in Legacy. Quite powerful with fetch lands and the card quality of Vintage. Lucky for us, we have a bunch of missteps to fight over this. Storm count's currently 5, so a Flusterstorm here would be a little annoying. Snapcaster Mage for a misstep. Let's just Pyroblast this. Alright, so we successfully countered their Brainstorm and got rid of a bunch of cards in their hand. They're down to 2 cards. We still have Force of Will. We don't really have much follow-up currently, but doing alright. Snapcaster follow-up for Brainstorm. See, I think that's going to be too good, I think. So I wish I had the extra mana, but we're going to force the Snapcaster. This could get Pyroblasted, in which case it would be pretty rough for us, but. So now I'm actually behind a little bit. All I have is this Bolt. That's not very good. Misstep will help a little bit. So now I'm definitely going to just stand up this Conclave and just try to start closing the game out. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have a follow-up Cruise. That would be pretty much a disaster, but it could happen. This Bolt looks really bad right now. I kind of wish it was anything else. Doesn't seem like our opponent has a follow-up Cruise, so we're just looking for... That's not a bad one. Let's Ponder, and then we can draw the best one and fetch away the other ones if we want. Oh, wow. So we want these cards. Now I wish we had fetched at least once ahead of it. This is super interesting. So I want both Mentor and Dig Through Time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the Dig Through Time with the Ponder, and then we're going to pass the turn back. If they do something crazy where we need to cast Dig Through Time, we can. But if not, I'd like to draw Mentor. They drew a Dak Fade in. Okay, that's fine. I still want to draw Mentor. Mentor is one of the single most powerful cards in this matchup. I would be really happy if we were able to resolve a Mentor. So I will let this Dak resolve. Yo, Dustin MTG. Thank you for the follow. Welcome. Hope you're enjoying the vintage content. This is like probably a very pivotal point in this game. Our opponent is Faithless Looting. We'll have to see which cards they end up with after. If it's something really, really strong, we might have to dig through time anyways. It's unfortunate this is a Pearl and not a Sapphire. I kind of made a mistake myself and not just fetching once before. They discarded Young Pyromancer and Spell Pierce. So their 2 cards in hand have to be better than Young Pyromancer and Spell Pierce. Take that for what it may be. I suspect one of them is like a Flusterstorm or a Pyroblast. So we get to draw our Mentor here, which is super sick. We are going to jam Mentor first, and then if our opponent counters it, we'll cast Dig Through Time. It ends up being a little bit of a weak line against something like Flusterstorm, but it's a better line against something like Force. So Pyroblast and Flusterstorm both don't counter Mentor, whereas they both count Pyroblast and Flusterstorm. Not really Flusterstorm right now if we led with Dig Through Time, but Pyroblast would just counter Dig. We have Pyroblast covered with Misstep though, so you might think you might say it could have been the other way. I'm not sure which is the best way to do this, but I do like having a Mentor in play, and it certainly is a better line against Force. So we don't actually have to jam this Dig Through Time now, and we could play around Flusterstorm. That's an interesting idea as well. If it's Flusterstorm, we get pretty punished for casting Dig here. If it's Pyroblast, we're actually in pretty good shape with a Misstep. But it has to be 2 cards that are worthwhile, that are better than Spell Pierce and Young Pyromancer. So not an easy choice, actually. They get better when they Dak again, too. But this is like pretty much guaranteed to resolve if we wait till our next turn. So I think I just shouldn't have fetched. I think I should have just passed back. But don't like get caught up in the fact that you made a mistake when fetching and like go and dig through time anyways. That would be a poor decision, I think. Sunk. So they get to pitch Mental Misstep Scalding Tarn here. So they have 3 cards. We kind of have Bolt covered pretty well. We have removal covered pretty well here. Between Misstep and Bolt, we can get our Mentor to 4. That's a brutal one. That's a brutal one. This means they get to do another Dak activation. I still don't think we want to dig yet. Hush, wow. We're gonna get buried. We are certainly getting buried at the moment. I think it's still right to hold up all of our stuff, though. We will have to hit Dak with something, unless we can kill him. Discards Island Dak. Pass Ponder. So we could counter this Ponder with Misstep, but I think it's very important that we keep the Misstep to try to preserve our Monastery Mentor. It's quite likely that our opponent will try to get rid of this Monastery Mentor. It's a very big obstacle to them winning this game. So, and Misstep hits pretty much all of the spells that deal with Mentor. What's it to Jace? It's gonna be a dig through time. Or oh man, they drew dig through time too. It's gonna be very hard for us to resolve spells. That would be the upside to casting the dig through time on our turn. Our opponent has gone through like 20 cards, really. It's the power of the blue-red Xerox deck. I still think we're in okay shape. A Resolve Mentor is really important. Probe's annoying, for sure. Our opponent is going pretty low on health to do this, though, and pretty low on open mana. Seeing this, it should be pretty obvious to our opponent that it's going to be very hard for them to kill Mentor. The only way they can kill Mentor here is if in their 5-card hand, it's double Lightning Bolt. So I'd really like to... Xerox is an old term for... Basically, there was the very first person who figured out that you can put cantrips in your deck and lower your land count. So they put a bunch of cantrips in their deck, and then everybody copied their deck when they figured out it was the best thing to be doing. And that's how you got the term Xerox, where Xerox is a copy machine. So basically everyone copied the guy's deck, and then it became a Xerox deck because everyone copied it. And that's the story I've been told. Don't know the truth behind that, but... The problem here is if I Lightning Bolt my opponent, so I really want to get a Monk into play, they can then Lightning Bolt back, and if they have a mental misstep, it's pretty rough for us. I don't know, not a vintage historian, just a vintage player. But if we cast Lightning Bolt and then on our turn dig through time, there's a high probability we can create a lethal set of attackers. So if they have a Snapcaster from misstep, that gives them a blocker. Yeah, you missed the attempt of playing goblins. It didn't go very well. I also played very poorly, so that doesn't help. So if our opponent has Bolt misstep, this ends up being a problematic play, but I think I'm going to take the aggressive line. Yep. Bolt Flusterstorm. So we ended up with 2 monks. Oh, they have Bolt Misstep. Okay, so they end up with 2 monks. We end up with 2 monks, but we lose our mentor. And we would have to cast... So 2, 9, 5 spells. That's going to be a lot of spells this turn. We do have a Fairy Conclave as well. So if our opponent has Force of Will, that's a problem. Fate Stitcher's an awful draw, for sure. If our opponent has Force of Will, this gets a little rough, but... Looks like our opponent also has Force of Will. So we can put them to 1. And they have 1 card in hand and a deck. Alright. See how that goes. I still think I like the line I took. They're going to have to draw some serious answers because the Fairy Conclave has flying. They have to draw a Bolt for the Conclave and then have to have answers for the 2 monks. They really need a Young Pyromancer plus a Bolt is what they need. This was a pretty interesting game of Magic. 1 bottom, 1 top. It's going to be a cruise. Jeez. Xerox, man. Cruise. Red? Young Pyromancer? You found Young Pyromancer Bolt, Jesus? Oh, that's super unfortunate. That's not a good draw, unfortunately. Doesn't answer Bolt. Pyroblast. Is this a blue permanent? Crap. Oh, that's funny. This is blue, huh? When you stand it up, it's blue. Brutal. Counter target spell. Alright, we're gonna get rid of their Dak Faden. Could have done this after block, but they have to block everything anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Going to F6 value. So they have to chump. So we still are gonna have a... They have 2 cards in hand and we have 1 mentor token. This is such a bad draw. Oh, man. Ancestral? Come on. Our opponent has 20 cards left in their library because they've drawn so many cards. Alright, I'll play a Lethal Faith Stitcher. If they counter it, it still has Unearthed Haste. You're 100% correct. Thank you for the follow, Mark. If they counter this, we can still unearth it. If we get in the final 1 point of damage with Fate Stitcher, that's the story. And I will be pretty happy if that happens. Oh, baby. Did we just draw Forcible? Is this gonna happen? Is Fate Stitcher gonna deal 1 damage? F6? No! You have another counterspell? So close. It's okay, we still have Unearth. We still have Unearth. Let's start with Preordain. Let's start with Preordain. Yeah, those are good cards. Do we want Ascendancy, though? Probably. It's gonna let us loot away lands later. So we can keep this Pyromancer and the Ascendancy, and we're gonna try to attack with this Fate Stitcher this turn, and then play a Pyromancer. I was looking for maybe a piece of counter magic, but... Hasty Fate Stitcher? Another Pyroblast. Oh, man. Young Pyromancer? Alright. So Ascendancy is going to be able to fix our draws later. It's more than likely this Pyromancer is going to die. And if this Pyromancer doesn't die, then we need to make sure we're able to loot away things. Basically, Ascendancy is going to let us turn future lands into more action. And I could be wrong on that one, Ma. I'm not sure if that's correct, but that's the way I thought about it. Look at our discard pile compared to their graveyard. They have 16 cards left in their deck. They just Merchant Scroll for Mystical Tutor to put a Lightning Bolt on the top of their deck. And they activated Misty and we've won. Fate Stitcher for value. Oh, crazy. I didn't see Jesus was chatting with us, but they said I cast Merchant Scroll, and the only cards left were 1 Force, 1 Force, 1 Mystical, 1 Fluster. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. All right, we got to win. The league is not over. We can carry on our way to that pity chest. Wow, fast opponents today. This is great. It's really hard because when people type to me in MTGO, it's right behind where my mic is, so I don't see it. Too focused on chatting. The other chat.